Welcome to the place where we gain knowledge through the lens of creativity. I am Aaron Dworkin, and this is Artful Science. Thanks again for joining me here on Artful Science. Today's show is Sky Scrolls, and my guest is Erika Blumenfeld, who's an artist, researcher, and writer who has collaborated with scientists and research institutions, including NASA, Scripps Institution of Oceanography, McDonald Observatory, and the South African National Antarctic Program. She's a Guggenheim Fellow, Smithsonian Artist Research Fellow. I could go on. Also a Creative Capital Awardee. Erika, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Aaron. This is such a pleasure to be joining you today. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I'm so excited. And, you know, it's always exciting. I really just have only a couple of guests where their direct work is literally centered at the intersection of arts and sciences. We have many guests who are really in the sciences, some guests who are in the arts, et cetera. So this is just amazing, this work that you've done. And I was just wondering, could you kind of, just to start us off, just give us some background on how you came into the work that you're doing and kind of what's the scope of what you do and how your art is focused so much on the sciences?
Yeah, that's a great place to start. And it's a bit of a romp. So, you know, I think of myself as a curiosity seeker and a collector of questions. So, and I think that's, and my artistic practice is really centered around the places where phenomena, where human experience meets phenomena of the phenomena of our natural world. So I think that that's a really great place for art and science to have a natural meeting, both in curiosity and in wonder. And my practice has always been pretty research-based, and so my questions naturally led me to want to work with research institutions. And so my very first collaboration with a research institution and a scientist was back in 2001, I started a conversation with a marine biologist at the Scripps Institution of Oceanography named Dr. Michael Latz. And I approached him because I was interested in learning about bioluminescence, the organisms that glow in our oceans. And I was curious about possibly working with them as a material for making art. And what I learned about these incredible organisms is that they link us to our ocean health and our atmospheric health. I mean, they're literally tied to every breath that we take, and yet they're microscopic organisms that we don't have a direct experience of very often. And so I think that's a good way to start thinking about my practice, is this curiosity between how our natural world is linked to the processes of our civilization, and how, in this case, it was bioluminescence and these populations being affected by climate change and you know, coastal growth and toxicities that really have led scientists to understand the relationships and how bioluminescence can be a marker for these you know, ocean health and atmospheric health. And so this was a real beginning for me and it has, you know, fast forward to today, I'm working on a project with NASA where I'm looking at developing a library for the public and for researchers that contain the astromaterials, the rocks from the moon and meteorites that they've collected, and to make them more accessible to people worldwide, so that people understand these stories. So that's sort of a broad leap, but that's really, about 20 years.
it's extraordinary. And with the bioluminescence, how did that ultimately materialize in your work? What was the outcome then that someone could experience? from you?
Yeah. I originally wanted to actually make a installation with the organisms. That was originally my goal. But what I learned was that they're very sensitive to their environment. And so I didn't want to harm them. And so I ended up doing a series of photographic works that were a relationship and a response to my impact on them or their experience through what's called an agitation chamber, which replicates the ocean turbulence, and really letting them sort of seeing them in at the scale of the organism. So you're kind of in their world. And I made video installations that have been exhibited abroad and nationally. And it actually led to me being on a panel with a group of artists and scientists at the UNESCO headquarters in Paris, where we were talking about the relationship between culture and climate change.
Wow, it's just truly extraordinary. I'm definitely encouraging all of our audience to just to check out your work, because it really is amazing. And so before we get to Sky Scrolls, people are probably like, so Sky Scrolls is the title, where's that coming? We're getting to it. But just before that, your work, part of your work has literally taken you to Antarctica. Could you just share a little of that?
Yes, and that was such an incredible experience. I could talk about this for an hour. But just briefly, I had an opportunity. I was invited to be the artist in residence with the South African National Antarctic Program as a collaborator on an art science team that was going that year. It was 2009. And I was working on a project that sort of continued my interests from the bioluminescence, still looking at climate change, still looking at the mechanisms between culture and nature. And so I was there with a project I call the Polar Project, which was really looking at how do we preserve these incredible and rare landscapes of our polar regions.
Awesome. It's really just amazing and extraordinary. So now getting a little bit more to the sky, you know, when I was literally, ever since I was a child, I'd walk to our local movie theater at night, I'd walk through these cornfields. And ever since that, I have just loved gazing at the sky. And of course, that's experience shared with so many people. It must just be in our DNA. But it is not possible all the time, and especially if you're near cities and other things. So I was just wondering if you could just kind of share, what is light pollution and why does it matter to us as we begin to think about the sky?
Yes, it's so important. And I think you sort of nailed it by this experience and expression of it's in our DNA. I think the stars are in our DNA in that sense, our cultural understanding and appreciation, and even the cultural continuity that we've had across time and across cultures. This idea of the stars and our view of the universe has been so key and fundamental in our discoveries, in disciplines, in our thinking and cosmologies and art and science across the board. And so light pollution is it's a human-driven phenomena, right? So it's essentially like encroachment of over illumination on areas or any area. And so I've been a big proponent of dark sky advocacy for a long time, because in 2013, I started researching and doing a lot of writing on the effects of over illuminating our world. And it's pretty extensive. I mean, I could also talk about an hour on this topic. I actually wrote a dissertation about this, but essentially it's affecting biodiversity, our ecosystems, our own health of species. It affects every part of our life. We evolved so that the blue light in the spectrum awakens us. And so when we are awakened all the time, our metabolic systems don't function like they need to, and it causes enormous issues within the human and other species. And so it's really looking at how how can we devise an illuminated world that's healthier? And there are enormous numbers of organizations who are doing this. Dark Sky Association being one of my favorite, and who are really helping people and cities and to understand the significance and the importance of the dark night and of really what I like to call our natural night environment. Before we had illumination, the full moon was the brightest illuminated source at night. And our average shopping mall is like 250,000 times brighter.
Wow. Wow.
So,
Hey.
Yeah.
It's
anyway.
Extraordinary. Yeah, no, it's truly amazing. And so when we think about that and when we're able to experience the sky, one of your projects is Sky Scrolls. Could you share kind of what that is and what you're capturing with that, which is also amazing?
Yeah, so the real impetus of that project was to really look at how we share the stars and how in sharing our stories of the stars, we can really connect across the cosmos. And I became curious about, what did it look like for us in today's culture to have this relationship with the stars? And so it was started out as a curiosity, like, what are people experiencing? And so I put a call out to my art list and asked people to share their stories. And the stories I got back were just wonderful and personal and thoughtful and meaningful. And I realized that there was something really here to this. And so I wanted to create an archive and a portal for people to consider their relationship with the night sky. And maybe they have a memory, some people write about a meaningful experience with a partner, a loved one, or a moment of solitude, or marking a particular time in their life when they saw maybe a comet or a shooting star, or just the Milky Way for the first time. And I think our stories link us to something very primal and very raw and real. And I think it's a way that we can remind ourselves the significance that the night sky has for us culturally.
It's really truly extraordinary, and definitely caused me to reflect back on the role that it definitely has played in my life. So unfortunately, we're just about out of time, but just kind of curious, what are you looking forward to this next year? Is there any key either project that you're working on or thing that you're looking forward to at this intersection of the arts and sciences?
Thank you. That's a great question. There are a lot of things happening this year. So I'm really looking forward to releasing this new print edition that is centered around the women who were known as the Harvard computers, who were helping to map the night sky and catalog the stars. So that's coming out this summer. And then we're also getting ready to do another release of new moon rocks and meteorites on the Astromaterials 3D website. So that's going to be really exciting. And I have some other projects in the works that I'm just sort of getting off the ground. So lots more to come.
Absolutely awesome. All I could say is, Erika Blumenfeld, thank you for helping us gain knowledge through the lens of creativity here on Artful Science. It's really been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aaron. This has been lovely.